Hey everyone, my name is Clyde, and this ship right up here is Z-42. Z-42 is a premium tier 10 German destroyer that's coming to Warships very soon. You'll be able to get her in the armory for 27,000 steel, and in today's video we're going to take a look at all of her attributes, compare her against some of her peers, and decide if she's a good deal for you. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, Wargaming let me borrow a rental of this ship in hopes that I would make this video, and I decided that I would go ahead and do that. Without further ado, let's carry on. This is a video in my hot take series, and if you haven't seen one before, you might be wondering what that means. Well, in each hot take video, we take a look at the ship's capabilities and we compare them against its peers, ships of the same tier and class. We rate each capability on a scale of 0 to 5, 5 being the best, and I think that's pretty much it. Sounds simple enough? All right, let's get to work. Z-42 on the surface seems like a relatively traditional German premium destroyer. She's got smoke and hydros, and she develops her damage through a mix of using guns and torpedoes. But if you look a little bit closer, the ship is a little bit funky. She has 10 105mm guns that have the same AP pen as the 128mm guns that are on ZF6. Her torpedoes are kind of slow and derpy. We'll talk about those in more detail a little bit later, but they're still usable. And she kind of has a Harugumo-like construction. This ship is sort of a blend of Z-52 and Harugumo, and if that sounds interesting, keep watching. We got a lot more to talk about. For consumables, Z-42 has a German-style hydroacoustic search. We'll talk about this in detail a little bit later. She's got an 8% engine boost, very typical version of this module. She's got these British-style smokes. These have a 40-second dispersion time, and in my build, they reload in 66.5 seconds. We'll go over my complete build later on in the video as well for anyone who's interested in that. And then, of course, she has a damage control party. For camouflages, Wargaming hasn't really pulled out all of the stops. We've seen a camo like this before, I think on one of their light cruisers. So it's just a couple of shades of gray here with the fore and aft ends of the ship being lighter colored. It looks fine, but it's not particularly inspiring. They do have an alternative color if you've unlocked that by completing whichever collection that was a part of. So you get kind of a blue version of this camo as well. First, let's talk about Z-42's guns. Now, she does have the third best AP DPM of all destroyers at tier 10. But her HE DPM is 13th. So that means that whenever you can use AP, you should be using the AP. And that's really critical. If the angles are right, you'll do quite well. Z-42 does not have improved AP pen angles, so you do need good angles. Whereas if you're used to the guns on ZF6, for example, or ZF6, that does have improved pen angles, and so you're going to get away with more tomfoolery with ZF6 than you will with Z-42. Now, the AP shells on Z-42 pen 37mm worth of armor. That is 8mm less than Z-52. So if you're comfortable with the way Z-52's guns work, remember that you're going to get less pen out of Z-42's guns. Again, that's more reason to be looking for those flat broadsides or those lightly armored targets, anything where you can definitely get through, like Minotaurs or destroyers or what have you. When farming battleships or other heavily armored targets, if you're missing the superstructure and connecting with things like turrets and barbettes, you're going to get a ton of shatters and ricochets. Don't be discouraged, just be a better shot. I do recommend IFHE, and we'll talk about my captain build at the end of the video as well, because that pushes your HE penetration from 26mm up to 32mm. 32mm is it's kind of a magic number. There's a lot of 32mm armor in the game, and you can achieve pen on that armor if you take IFHE. The guns only have a 5% fire chance to begin with, so you're going to cut that down to 2.5%, which doesn't honestly cost you that much because, again, you're going to be focusing on AP whenever you can. You do want the opportunity to switch to HE when you have to. When the angles go poor, you want to be able to get good pen with your HEs, so I do recommend IFHE because the guns on this thing are so small at 105mm. All told, I really do like the guns on Z-42, so I'm going to rate them a 4 out of 5. Z-42 has 2 torpedo launchers that launch 4 torpedoes each. The torps are slow and they don't do much damage, but they reload every 100 seconds and they go 10 kilometers. So they're kind of average to mediocre all around. I'm going to rate the torpedoes a 2 out of 5 for Z-42. Next, we'll talk about survivability and concealment for Z-42. So this ship actually has a pretty poor health pool. It's just 19,700 hit points, which brings her in at 18th place out of 24 destroyers at tier 10. That's 11,000 hit points behind Elbing, which is the top ship at that class and tier. Harugumo and Z-42 both have a 6.2 kilometer detection range, with Z-52 coming in 100 meters better at 6.1 kilometers. Now, these numbers are not that great when you're contesting caps against things like Shimakaze or Vampire 2, which have detection ranges of 5.6 and 5.8 kilometers respectively. It seems like Wargaming thinks that we can use our British smokes and our hydros to keep this ship safe. And maybe we can. I mean, the reload time on those smokes is really, really short. So pretty much any time you need to pop smoke to hide, you'll have a smoke that's ready to go. You can just, like a ninja, and vanish. That works as long as you're not, playing forward, contesting a cap with your hydros, and they get you on radar, which does happen, but a lot of times I was able to use those smokes to escape. I do think this ship is a little bit frail. A lot of times on Hot Take, we talk about how some ships have hull repairs because they don't have that many hit points, and so they use those to kind of recover hit points as they take damage, and that allows them to feel like they have more hit points. Or there's ships like, I think, Rigolo or something, or Elbing, that have a lot of hit points to begin with, but they don't have any ability to recover those hit points. They just have a big pool. Z-42 has a small pool and no way to recover hit points. And so, like I said, it makes it feel a little bit frail. Couple that with her good but not great concealment, and I just don't think this ship is the most survivable. Yes, you can survive in it, but it's going to take work and alertness. So make sure you're alert when you're out there in Z-42. I'm going to give her a 2 out of 5 for survivability. Z-42 is equipped with the best hydroacoustic module in World of Warships. This hydro module is only available on Preußen, Kurfürst, Hindenburg, Z-52, and now Z-42. It can detect ships at 6 kilometers, torpedoes at 4 kilometers, and it lasts for 2 minutes. There's no way I can't give Z-42 a 5 for this category. She's simply the best. She's better than all of them. Next, let's talk about Z-42's anti-aircraft capability. The ship ranks 8th out of 24 destroyers at Tier 10 when it comes to AA strength, and it does feel like she does legitimate damage to enemy aircraft when you've got the attention of the CV, whether you want it or not. And the reason for this is because her best AA DPS number is her long-range AA DPS number. And that means that the instant you come in contact with those planes, you're doing real damage to them. Her other numbers, medium and short, are fine too, actually. So if you do actually get struck, you're going to continuously cause damage and hopefully bring down a few of those airplanes. There were multiple times where I was playing and I had like a Malta or some other aircraft carrier come and try to strike me, and I would knock down multiple airplanes. So I felt pretty comfortable with that. One thing she doesn't have that other DDs have that can make them really devastating, at least in short bursts, is a defensive AA module. I'm going to go ahead and rank Z-42 a 3 out of 5 for AA, because it could be better, but it isn't half bad. For anti-submarine warfare capability, I'd say that Z-42's ASW armament is a little bit on the weak side. Like most destroyers, she only has over-the-side depth charges, but she only deploys 8 of them, and they have relatively low damage and fire chance. I mean, yes, she can mess up a submarine, but other destroyers are better equipped to deal with these underwater menaces, and I found myself having to use my main battery to finish off subs that I started killing with depth charges. So I'm going to assign Z-42 a 2 out of 5 for ASW. Next, we'll talk about maneuverability for Z-42. Now, you guys know that I always want all my ships to be faster all of the time, and that is definitely true of Z-42. When I first got the ship, I thought to myself that it didn't turn very well, and I went and I looked up its turning radius and its rudder shift, and it turned out those numbers are actually pretty good. They're in the top third of the Tier 10 destroyers, but its speed is pretty poor. It only goes 36.5 knots. And the fastest destroyer is a lot faster, and the slowest destroyer ain't that much slower. The slowest destroyer being Trump, but Trump also comes with 4 charges of a 25% speed boost. We have an 8% speed boost in Z-42, and so it just does not really cruise that quickly. I'm going to give Z-42 a 2 out of 5 for maneuverability, just because she's kind of a tub. Is Z-42 easy to play? Like I often say in this section, Z-42 is not a very complicated ship. However, there are some things you can do to make your life more complicated. You could become overextended if you're not paying attention and keeping your situational awareness wits about you. You might dive a little too deep, trying to use your hydros, which are awesome, or maybe contest a cap, and then be too slow to escape when the enemy radars you. Now, her smokes are kind of interesting. They only last 40 seconds, and what that means is you're not really able to engage in long-running, long-duration farming like you can in a Harugumo. This might sound like a bad thing, but I actually think that at the end of the day, it's kind of a good thing, because far too many Harugumo captains find themselves eating unnecessary torpedoes because they felt too safe in that long-lasting smoke. In the Z-42, you are constantly planning your next move because you know you don't have smoke that lasts long enough that you can get cozy in any one location. For ease of play, I'm going to assign Z-42 a 3 out of 5. I think it's pretty reasonable, but she is a little frail, and you can get yourself into a situation that you may not survive getting out of. Is Z-42 a fun ship to play? I think Z-42 is pretty average. She's fine. I think the two biggest problems I have with this ship are her relatively low hit point pool and her concealment that's almost good enough to contest a cap, but frankly not good enough to compete with the ships that you are certainly going to bump into when you get there. You'll find yourself outspotted, and it might only be briefly because you can use your hydros to light up the enemy DD and then hopefully take them down with the support of your team. I did get dunked on a few times when that happened, and it was really unsatisfying because maybe just a momentary error was enough to get me spotted and cost me 60 to 100% of my health. I feel the same way when I play Z-52. Z-52 only has 600 more hit points and a concealment that's only 100 meters better than that of Z-42. So maybe if you're a big Z-52 fan, you'll find Z-42 a very natural transition, and you will love the increased DPM that it has that Z-52 does not. I'm going to give her a 3 out of 5 for fun. And our final category, competitive play. Is Z-42 going to show up in things like King of the Sea tournament play, clan battles? No, I don't think so. I think she's going to be used about as much as you see Z-52 and Harugumo today. She's got a lot of the DNA of those ships baked into her, so I'm going to rate her a 2 for competitive play. Okay, so for our commander build, we've gone with preventative maintenance, last stand, survivability expert, and concealment expert. I went with IFHE to push our HE pen from 26 to 32 millimeters. This cuts our fire chance in half from 5 down to 2.5%, and then I take Demolition Expert to push that back up to 3.5%. We've got Adrenaline Rush, which is going to help us reload our guns faster as we take damage, which is bound to happen. And then Extra Heavy Ammunition here boosts our AP damage by 7.5%. Get a little depth charge damage as well, but we're really just buying this to go for the AP shell damage. And then finally, Grease the Gears helps bring our rotation speed for our turrets down to 18 seconds for 180 degrees. They don't turn real fast, and I figured that would help out just a little bit. For our upgrades, we've gone with a pretty standard set of items for a German destroyer. We've got main armaments modification 1. We've gone with a coal hydroacoustics module. I figure if we have the best hydros in the game, we might as well make them run as long as possible. We've got aiming systems modification 1 to reduce dispersion for our main battery. We've got propulsion modification 1 to give us a little more get up and go, if you will. And then concealment modification 1 to bring our concealment down as low as possible. Again, we get down to 6.2 kilometers, which, you know, I would like to be better, but that's the best we can do on this ship. And then finally, I've gone with main battery modification 3. When you've got 10 guns, you want them reloading as fast as possible. You could go with a range increase if you want, but 12.6 kilometers is good enough for the kind of fighting you're going to do with Z-42. So I decided to stick with this, and the torpedoes just aren't good enough to build into. So that is my hot take on the Z-42. Is this the kind of ship that you want to add to your port? Do you feel like you just got to get over to the steel store as quickly as possible? Do you think it's worth 27,000 steel? Would you buy it without a coupon, or will you wait for the coupon that is going to come back midsummer? I'm really curious what you guys think of this ship, and if it's something that you just have to have, or if it's something you're going to pass on. Hit me up in the comments down below, and if you have any questions about the ship or anything else, just let me know. I'll try to answer as many of those comments and questions as I can. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much for that. Please take care of each other, be cool, be nice, and we will see you in the next video or battle or whatever. Tier 10 German destroyer that is coming to the armory soon for 27